My name's Aaron Norton. I'll be graduating from the Ag Institute in December with 3 degrees in general ag, horticulture, and ag business. And after that, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I'm enjoying working here.
I'm Sophia McCusker. I am just finished my first year at the Ag Institute in horticulture. I'll graduate in May. I'm enjoying my time here, and I'm not sure what I'm doing afterwards.
All right, so now you're familiar with everybody here. Our first plant is actually right here, so if you want to come forward, you can gather in close since we're an intimate-sized tour, and I can tell you about Curcuma petiolata. So this curcuma is a whole genera of plants in the family Zingiberaceae, so they're all related to edible ginger, so like the root you get in the grocery store. Curcuma is actually more closely related to Curcuma longa, which is turmeric that everyone grinds for the cooking spice. Curcuma petiolata is a native to Malaysia and is not edible, but it's a gorgeous ornamental, and a lot of people call it hidden cone ginger because if you can look in here, usually starting in late summer to autumn, you can find a flower and they're pink bracts and yellow flowers on the inside, and as that cone kind of enlarges, the bracts will fade to a pale green yellow. Unfortunately, this one's not flowering for us yet. We do have some Curcuma longa here in the garden that flowered earlier in the season, but I keep my eye on this guy because it's going to start flowering soon. Not really fragrant, but gorgeous once the flowers come out. And it's great to add a nice tropical texture to any shaded garden. It can take wet to dry shade or a little bit of morning hours of sunlight. It's not bad either.
So the inflorescence doesn't?
It does not like this.
Like
there are others
ginger to do.
Yes,
okay.
Others in the ginger family do have terminal flowers. This has axillary flowers close to the ground. It's also toxic. This one you can't eat in dark.
Right next to a really cool salvia.
It really is right next to a really good salvia. If anybody has time later and hasn't touched both the flower and the leaf, get a chance and get that contrast and texture. It's really amazing. Also, Vivian let me know that this is in the Wilmington garden area, which is a sheltered microclimate for us. This Curcuma petiolata is hardy here, and the roots are hardy to 7B, so we're typically safe. But this area provides more warmth than in a harsh winter. This could survive here more readily.
This is one of my selections. It's Ginkgo biloba majestic butterflies. It's a variegated maidenhair tree. It is a dwarf variety, so it'll only get like 8 to 12 feet tall and about half as wide. It's named for the leaves kind of look like clusters of butterflies. If you look, it was found as a sport off of the jade butterfly selection by Caspin Silva. I think that's from what I could find. He owns a nursery and does plant collecting out west. The variegation tends to be stable. I picked the ginkgo because I like the backstory of it. It's known as a living fossil, and it's said to be one of the oldest seed plants. It was thought to be extinct, and then they found patches of it in the wild in China. It's in its own family, the Ginkgoaceae. It is a dioecious plant, so hopefully this is a male, because the female produces a very strong smelling. The best wording I found for is rancid butter or vomit. The seeds smell like when they fall to the ground. I think that's what I've got. Any questions?
Would the variation be more prominent if it was in a little more sun or not? Or do you know?
That I don't know.
very subtle variation.
Yeah, and it seems to be sort of like intermittent. I'm not sure if I.
So actually, if everyone can get kind of close for this one, I want you to feel this one because it's a neat ornamental, but there's also a lot of good texture here. It's soft. This is Alpinia japonica extra spicy. It's not so extra spicy anymore. Now it's just kind of regular spicy. This introduction was originally given to us and planted out because it has great variegation in the new growth, but the variegation is kind of unstable and that's gone away. So now it looks more like Alpinia japonica, just the species. Still though, if you feel the leaves as you're walking by, even the older growth is soft, but the new growth is just really, really fuzzy. Alpinia japonica, these hardy gingers are grown in woodland areas all throughout Japan, and they typically flower on the second year's growth. So if we had a longer, warmer season and this got up higher, you could see spikes of red and white streaked flowers. I looked them up. I haven't seen them in person myself, but they looked really attractive. So extra spicy, really nice plant. Even as just a green ground cover, it adds more of that tropical interest to a dry to slightly moist shade. And it's still hardy, it's still mostly hardy to the ground for our area. Yeah. So yeah, I encourage you guys, we'll move on to our next plant, but seriously, just take a feel, it's so soft.
And the spicy is what? Is it used as a herb or something?
Not this kind. Alpinia japonica is largely not used for food. Yeah. I think they just thought it was funny to say extra spicy over the variegation. It is in Zingiberaceae though, so it's related to, once again, edible ginger. Alright, so this next plant is, like I said, ginger family. This is Zingiber myoga. This is more closely related to a true ginger, to the edible ginger, than the others. Zingiber myoga, dancing crane. This one finally is edible. You can eat this, but not all parts. Most of like the vegetative structure here is toxic, but you eat the flowers. And the straight species is cultivated under woodland areas in order to just pick the flowers for food. Like people will use them to garnish sushi or just other foods. It's a real lovely, like pale yellow flower, but really light, like almost translucent the flower is. They'll come on later on in the autumn. You can't see any now, but I don't think that takes away too much because you see a lot of really healthy variegation. We saw some other things that were kind of a hint of variegation, but here it's just really bold, really fresh. Prolific plant. You can share it with your friends. We actually divided from this clump, and so we've got a number of propagules in the shade house. It's relative, or kind of one of its like sister cultivars, is Silver Arrow. We walked by that one. That one's a lot less prominent in variegation. It's a little more like a true green and then maybe like a muted soft green rather than the cream variegation. Still gorgeous though. So that's dancing crane. Any questions?
The flowers on this are at the base as well?
They are. They're down at the base. It looks like you like picked maybe like an orchid or like a shell impatient flower kinda and throw it down there.
Does it need real well-drained soil? Or is
It's
it in a
enjoying
tolerant
its
condition?
time right here in this soil, and this is pretty well drained. And then we have another clump in the white garden. I think it can withstand clays, but well-drained soil I'm sure is better. I'm not particularly certain.
It does not want wet feet.
Yeah.
So a lot of gingers I see more often in sun.
Mhm.
Is this shade because of the variegation?
Not necessarily. I
Will
mean,
it take more sun?
it will take more sun. I haven't seen it like a comparison between full sun. It's getting a little more sun in the white garden. I know it likes the partial shade because it's variegated. It might burn in real heavy sunlight, I imagine. Everything I read about the gingibers though suggested some shade, like relief from the hottest part of the day.
Most gingers are going to want some shade. The flowering gingers, pediculums, will flower more heavily in more sun. But the plants don't look as nice. The leaves curl, you get some burn. So when you're growing them for the flowers, you try and get a little more sun, but you don't. If you put out all day blazing sun, they do suffer, especially if they're not getting enough water. But for something that you're really growing for the foliage, part shade is going to be much better for them.
Do you propagate by division?
Yeah, that's what we do. It's rhizomatous. So it's shorter rhizomes, but it can still expand like a 4 or 5 foot plant.
If you're looking at your plants and trying to figure out if you have alpinia or zingiber, one of those, alpinias have gingery smelling foliage. And zingibers and hibiscums don't. It's one easy way to tell what you have.
So this is the agave ovatifolia, frosty blue, commonly known as whale's tongue because it looks like a whale's tongue. It's native to Mexico and southwest USA. Like other agaves, it needs to be planted in a winter dry location. If not, its roots will stay wet and it will start to rot out and die. So you want to keep it on a raised bed or have some gravel underneath it or plant it on a slope. It doesn't need much water, but it does respond well to irrigation. It prefers full sun, and you can see it has dark gray terminal spines. In ancient times, people would actually use the spines as needles for sewing. They live many years until they flower. The flower mass can be up to 30 feet tall. Does anyone know why they might be so tall? People think it's possibly to, what'd you say?
Bats.
Bats?
Gotta get up to where the bats are.
It's a good idea, but my idea was to keep them away from animals so that animals wouldn't eat the flowers once they pop up. But could be that too, you never know.
Pollinated by bats. That's fine. Sticking to it.
There's actually a large one on the roof garden right now that has a massive mass coming up if you want to check it out. And this is a frosty blue, but there's also another frosty blue in the rain garden that's massive. It's like this big. It's really cool. You should check it out. And once the agave flowers, the actual plant will die, but it will leave a few suckers every now and then to keep living or make new plants. But it's really good to get a good feel for it and just feel how sturdy it is. It's a really strong plant, and I just really like the architecture of it and how it looks. It's really strong.
How old is that plant? Do you have any idea?
I'm not sure how old that one is. Do you know, Mark, how old that one might be?
Well, we probably got it as a quart plant in 2014. So, they're agave really. They need really good drainage, but if you give them water, like we get here on the East Coast, they grow really pretty quickly. They're not nearly as slow as people think of them. They grow slow in desert environments, but they actually, as long as you give them good drainage, they love water and will really respond and grow quickly.
And the agave tequiliana is a different species. It is actually used for making tequila. Many of you might already know that. I think you can make syrup with this kind. So here's our next specimen. You might have seen it while we were already over there. It really pops out of the landscape. When me and Brady and Sophia in London were at Moore's Farm, we were standing on top of a roof, and there were just trees for days, and you could see a little patch of this guy standing out from so far away. It just pops out and really creates contrast in the landscape. Of course, it's known for its great foliage. The blue color on the leaves comes from a waxy layer in the needles, and the more wet a climate is, the less blue the needles will be, and the more hot, the more blue it will stay, or more dry, excuse me. It's extremely hardy. It can survive the heat of our summer and very cold winters all the way up to southern Canada. So it can really survive almost anywhere. These naturally grow in the Rockies, which help explains why they can tolerate poor soils and drought. So they're pretty hardy. They're popular in places where it snows a lot because their branches will actually hold the snow and block the wind at the same time. And in a good space, they would typically grow about 12 inches. It's probably less here since it's a little hot. And they're very common as windbreaks or screens or borders. And really I just like it because of the way it pops out. I think it looks good in a landscape and creates a lot of contrast.
So this is the Acinema triloba. It's the pawpaw tree. It is a native fruit tree to the southeast United States. It likes to be, it's like an understory, so it likes to be in the shade when it's younger, and then as it grows into full sun. I heard about this tree from Will Hooker. I went and visited his yard, and he has one he's gotten to fruit. I've never tried the fruit. I would really like to. But when I selected this, I started doing some research and found out that the fruit, this is from the USDA site, it says it can be eaten raw, but it can cause severe stomach and intestinal pain. So that's like for some people. And so that got me curious. I was curious what caused spit like that. And I found out that the species, or the family, there are other plants in the family as well as the pawpaw. The pawpaw, I think, contains less from what I could find, but it contains a neurotoxin that's called anisin. And through studying, they've found that the anisin in what's known as the sugar apple it has induced brain lesions in rodents. So it's actually, I'm into edibles, but I'm not so sure about this one. But it is cool because it's actually fruiting Tim says for the first time. If you look in, they're little, where are they? Yeah, so they're still small. I also found that another note from the USDA site was that the fruit should be like 3 to 5 inches long, and it often doesn't fruit on the tree, so it'll often fall while it's still green. And one note that they left was to ripen it outdoors because the smell is overpowering. So I still think it's a cool plant. If the fruits do ripen, I'll probably try them. Hopefully that'll go well for me. I thought it's in the magnolia family, the magnolia order. Sorry, Magnoliaceales. Did I say it was pollinated by flies? It's pollinated by flies, and the flowers actually are really pretty, like dark maroon. They don't smell very good because they're pollinated by flies. It's precocious, so it's the flowers will be there before the leaves. This plant was planted in 2005, and it was a seedling from Mike Parker's work from the Horticulture Science Department. I still think it's a cool plant, even though the fruit's kind of disturbing.
How large will it get?
I think it was like 25, 30 feet. And I think this one on our website says 16. It's 16 feet now, so it'll be a pretty decent sized tree.
Fun fact I learned is there's a grower in Pittsburgh who has a whole bunch of hangs dead fish to attract the flies to pollinate his tree.
Yeah, Will Hooker said that he hangs like chicken bones from his trees.
Rats.
Yes. I'm not sure where it's from. The information I have is that it's from Mike Parker's work. I'm not sure what exactly that means.
It's not a main cultivar, but yeah.
Okay.
Critters always get my eye. Supposedly you can't transplant this unless the roots are active.
don't know much. I have heard that they are hard.
That is true if you're digging them in the wild. You can plant containerized plants anytime. That's a lot of that information comes from people digging them in the wild or from when they were grown as B&B plants. And it is, if you want fruit, you're better off with different name varieties. They grow clonally, they'll sucker, and you get, if you go out and see a bunch of pawpaw in the wild, they are generally all genetically the same because they're all coming up from suckers. So you're better off with multiple varieties. And for those like butterflies, it's they're larval host, which is why we're butterfly small plants.
Other pawpaws in the collection?
There's one other one, and I don't remember where it is. You know, offhand? The other pawpaw?
Don't. We have another species, Cinnamon vestifolia on the rooftop, which is really interesting when you see it flower. It's really showy flower, big white flowers on it. It's a shrubby one. There's a whole kind of cluster of shrubby species from the sandhills down in North Florida and South Georgia that are just complete bare to grow in the nursery setting, but they're really interesting plants. Maybe we'll see some of those. Randy's doing some hybridization between the bigger species and the shrubby ones, so maybe we'll see something very cool somewhere down the road.
It died. So yeah, everybody gather around. This one's gonna be our next plant. And either you can smell it now or you can smell it later. That bloom. They're really perfumey in the evening. They smell pretty good now. Does it remind anybody of anything off the top of your head? Another smell? Let's see. Anybody get anything else off of that? It's pretty light now, but later in the evening it gets up. So this is Daniel Weeks. It's another fragrant hedychium. It's a hybrid that has, let's see, flavescens and gardnerium in it. Hedychium flavescens usually adds fragrance to that hybrid. Daniel Weeks is a really prolific flowering ginger lily. It started, I think, a little early for us this year. Most of the time it's like late July or into August and then through autumn. The Daniel Weeks will actually flower till frost. But like I said, heavily fragrant. A Larry Schatzer hybrid in 1992. He did a lot of work hybridizing hedychium and ginger lilies. But yeah, this one's gorgeous. Peachy flowers. Most of the time the white ones are usually really fragrant, but in this case it's got really peachy sepals, and then it's got a golden throat in the petals, which is quite attractive. So yeah, this can enlarge to be like a 4-foot clump, and some of the stalks can get a little taller than this, 4 to 5 feet. Again, they don't like wet feet either, but they do like moisture, and this one is being grown for nice flowers, hence it's here in the perennial border where it's getting a lot of sun. So yeah, another gorgeous ginger lily. This is really the first hedychium we've done too. So we've done hedychium, alpinia, and we've seen zingiber as well, and curcuma. So all different species, all Zingiberaceae, just showing you that family characteristics can be important when you're out hunting or like IDing for something, or you want to try and cultivate something. You can look back to the family and see a lot of shared characteristics between the two, between all the plants, but then also see distinct differences. Does anybody have any questions about this guy? Daniel Weeks? I don't know who Daniel Weeks is. I couldn't find that. But.
So what does it smell like?
So in the evening when it gets more fragrant, it smells like honeysuckle, Japanese honeysuckle. And I can pick that up now. I've got pretty good nose, but yeah, later on as the sun gets setting, it'll smell more powerfully, and this flower will start to smell more as more blooms come on.
Okay, so this is Quercus glauca. It's also known as ring-cupped oak or Japanese blue oak. It's native to Eastern and Southeastern Asia and Southern Asia. It can have multiple or singular trunks. It prefers full light, but shade will make it grow straight up, so it'll have more of a singular trunk. It's very tolerant of hard freezes. On new growth, it has a distinct purple crimson. Unfortunately, there's not any on the tree right now, but soon that purple crimson will turn into glossy green on the top part of the leaf and blue-green on the bottom part of the leaf, which is also where it gets its name from. Its flowers are catkins and its fruits are acorn. It also gets ring-cupped oak from the acorns. There's cylindrical rings around the acorn cup. The acorns are actually edible when dried and ground into powder. You can add them to cereals and use it as a flour. You could actually roast the seeds and use it as a substitute for coffee. Not sure how that'll go for you, but you can try. Its wood can be used as a valuable fuel wood. Not that you would want to use this tree as that, because it's so pretty, but for dire times. Its leaves and stems are relished by deer, and the trunk's bark can be silver, white, light green, and gray. I really like this one because of the multiple trunks and the architecture of it, how it spreads out. I think it's really cool. Kind of looks like a hand coming out of the ground or something. Does anybody have any questions?
Was this part of the original plans?
I think it was.
Arboretum started?
Right.
Yeah, these were part of the, when this was, before the Arboretum, when this was a research station, the Quercus filurioides, the Ubami oak and this, and they in the 85? Somebody help me out, freeze, 85, 86?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Somewhere around there, the big freeze, both these oaks were killed back, and that's why they're branched like this at the ground. So these could be, you know, from the 50s, 60s.
Everybody. So I decided to do the Ipomaea batatas Sweet Caroline green yellow. These came out of the breeding program at here at State. A lot of the Sweet Caroline varieties and the Sweetheart varieties came out of the program, the breeding program at State, which I thought was interesting. They are part of the Convolvulaceae family, commonly known as the bindweed or morning glory family. Thought it was really interesting that the this family includes a lot of bullies. The sweet potatoes are known for being really vigorous and sort of taken over, and this family includes the Convolvulus, which is bindweed, which I'm not super familiar with, but everybody knows the Ipomaea, which is morning glory, and the Cuscuta, which is dodder, which is very invasive. But this one it grows a lot, but it also is it's a tender perennial, so it dies back. It's a native to Central and South America, or rather the sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes have been cultivated for, I found 2,000, I found 5,000 years, and were reportedly brought back to Europe by Columbus. I thought it was interesting. And I really like the variegation of this one with the light yellow, green, as opposed to just the bright yellow leaves. Maybe you have any questions?
What plant is it?
The tubers on these are not edible. Well, they are technically edible. I don't know if they're palatable.
Okay.
Yeah.
What plant are you talking about?
This one, the sweet potato vine.
Does it flower?
They do flower, but the flowers are not really, they're not really special. This is for the foliage. They're like the ones I've seen, not on this specific plant, but the other ones I've seen, they're like a light purple. They look kind of like a morning glory. Like a tube. And they're normally like under the leaves. So this is Rubus rolfii. It's a creeping raspberry. It's in the raspberry, or the Rhiziaceae family. This family includes a lot of our fruits, so like pears, apples, peaches, plums. think. This started as 3 like pint-sized, I think, plants, and it's spread. It can get to be like 4 feet wide. It's got little prickles on it, but they're not like nearly as bad as like the blackberries or anything. This plant is from Taiwan. It's often the form that's been grown in the U.S. Rarely, if ever, fruits, and this one was collected by you in Taiwan, and it's proven really vigorous. And there are not a lot of berries on it now, but like 2 weeks ago, it was full of these really pretty golden berries, and they actually taste pretty good. Yeah, it was actually Aaron. He came through an ale. Cool weather can bring like a plum tint to the foliage, which we haven't had much cool weather, so. Any questions?
Will they die back in the sun, in full sun? I remember this bed used to come all the way up here. And I had the same problem at home. As soon as it hit sun, it would just die.
That I'm not sure of. I think they are. I know we've got other patches of them, and they're in varied levels of light, but I don't think any of them are in full sun. So they must like some shade.
Yeah, this covered this whole area. What it has more of a problem with is where it's really exposed and you get cold, it really knocks it back, and it can have trouble coming back. In heavy clay, in sun and dry, it is not happy. I mean, it grows naturally in moister areas, usually in shade, but and on hillsides where you get seeps running down it is where it generally is.
There's a struggling patch in the right near the driveway, in the turnaround in the parking out there, and it struggles in the sun.
Yeah.
And that heat out there with the parking lot.
There's a different root, ground cover rubus.
It might not be the same variety, but it's,
Yeah.
I picked this. There's another clump I think down. If you go down Asian Valley, but the berries were not. I noticed were not as sweet on that one. Just tasty.
what's your favorite?
So a couple things about Hedychium also. Hedychium used to be a really popular plant in glass houses in the Victorian era in the UK. They were collected widely and brought back and placed in collections where they could be kept from winter temperatures, where they could thrive. Some of these aren't hardy in the UK, or they used to not be, because they required a good amount of warmth to be able to survive the winter, like so they could bulk up during the season. And where it was so cool in the UK and things, they weren't winter hardy. A guy named Tom Schilling kind of rediscovered Hedychium in Nepal in the 60s, and since then that's where we've kind of had like an explosion of Hedychium hybrids and things ever since, and people have collected from various areas around the world to give us the collection of horticulturally interesting hybrids that we have today. Hedychium coronarium, which is not this, but Hedychium coronarium is the native, or it's the national flower of Cuba. I don't know why. I don't know if coronarium is native there, but it is their national flower. This is a hybrid called Hedychium Dr. Moy. Dr. Moy was a plant breeder in San Bernardino Botanic Garden in California. I suppose he was looking for just a nice variegated cultivar of Hedychium that still had a little bit of scent to it. So this one is slightly fragrant, and it has slightly peachy flowers. It's not just like the straight white like you often see with the heavily fragrant. More kind of like Daniel Weeks that we saw down there. Most of the time, like, you see a lot of variegation in some of these larger stalks. It's just sort of flecked, like it's a little bit of streaking in the variegation, which is attractive. But then down here, down low, this new shoot, I think it might get a little larger too, is heavily variegated. And so you imagine if you see something that's heavily variegated like that plus topped with long inflorescence that are quite fragrant. It's a winning combination. And so, you know, that's partly why I really picked Hedychium. It's just, they bring a lot to the garden. There's a lot of good interest about them. I guess some people might say they look like corn or something like that, really. But monocots are cool. They just kind of rise up out of the ground, like especially these Hedychiums. You come by in the whole geophyte border, really, there's, you know, it's low, it's nothing, it's almost just ground. And then all this springs up in the season, and Hedychium, Dr. Moy, is one of those. It looks great, it's variegated, and then later on when it has flowers, it smells gorgeous in the evening, and it looks great too. So yeah, just an all around really cool plant. Yeah.
Is it easy to find to buy locally?
Dr. Moy? I don't think so. I know Plant Lights had it on sale at one point, but other than that, I haven't really shopped around for it and seen it a lot.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good now.
Relatively.
All right. Yeah.
How about Daniel Weeks?
Daniel Weeks should be available pretty readily. Like that one's been around for a bit. So yeah, Dr. Moy, you guys can come in later, get close. I encourage you to keep an eye. It's actually a good time to tour some gingers. It'd be better later, but we can't affect the date. Ginger season is starting now, like the flowering season, and they'll keep going through late summer into autumn, and then some, like Daniel Weeks, to frost. So it'll be really cool to come out here and see.
Does anything kill them?
I mean,
Pest resistance, frost, I guess it doesn't.
and everything, I mean, they're mostly hardy to our area. If you went further north, there are some hybrids that are also hardy, but I don't know if you're gonna get a lot of Hedychium farther north than like zone 5. I didn't see a lot suggesting that you'd have them outside all the time. Like you could still have them containerized there. Pest problems, I don't really know of any pests that are heavily damaging to Hedychium. So yeah, I mean, most of these look really clean. Like we haven't seen a lot of damage. Sun, I guess, if it was in, like as Mark mentioned earlier, if it's in a real heavily exposed area and you want the foliage, it might crisp up in heavy sun, and they don't like a lot of moisture sticking around the root zone. But yeah, other than that, they're pretty pest free. Any more questions? I don't know about deer. It might be on the talk later in the season. It might be deer resistant. I have no idea. I mean, most of the plant parts are toxic, but deer don't seem to mind that sometimes. But yeah, if that's everything, that's the last plant on our tour.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.